Mhm. Ladies and gentlemen, get your drinks ready. We have just over a minute before we get cracking. Didn't realize y'all couldn't hear the music. It's jamming music. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Old Humble Distilling Company's Whiskey Happy Hour. I am, as always, your host and the voice of the Old Humble Guy. Uh, Coming to you live from the Old Humble Pandemic Studio, where we started this whole thing off way back in March of 2020, and now uh, we're doing 3 or 4 shows a week now, um, all in an effort to generate what do I how do I all in to build a community for the channel. That's what we're working on here, building a community for the channel, doing more happy hours, doing more events. So in the sense of concept and spirit of community, if you're visiting, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, like the video, hit the notification bell. Don't miss any of our happy hours because we have a good time doing it. We talk about some nonsense. We talk about some big stuff. Like tonight, we're talking about updating on the war over in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, uh, uh, Putin's folly, Putin's war, whatever you want to call it. When we hit 350 subs, we're at 333 right now. When we hit 550 rather, we hit 550 subs. I'm going to give away a bottle of our double oak rye. Should be next month that I'm shooting for that. I have a little bit of a allergy thing going on today, so I'm pouring myself a fresh cocktail. My cocktail of choice on nights like these are simply Old Humble Neat. But I'm not just the spokesman for the company. I am also I also make the whiskey. I'm the owner. So if you got any questions about the whiskey, you got any questions about the company, by all means, feel free to ask it. I've been out of town the last few days, completely off grid, completely unconnected to the interwebs and internets, and I only got spotty, really only spotty internet coverage and internet updates. So it'd be like in the middle of the night, I'd get a wave of updates and news and Twitter updates and all the just this flash of updated information. So I don't really know. I'm not really well connected over the last 7 days because I've been really poorly connected over the last 7 days. But the last 2 or 3 days, I've been catching myself up pretty quick. And we know a lot of things today that we didn't know 2 weeks ago when I did my last Ukraine update. We know a lot of things today. We see a lot of progress. We see a lot of stalls. We see a lot of dynamic changes. Several things that I saw, but I didn't get to chase down and find out more information about. Several things, and we'll talk about all that. We'll get to all that stuff. Real quick though, I want to do some housekeeping. We were supposed to have a music festival air on our channel Saturday a week ago. It did not air. There's a reason for that. I'll get into all those details uh, on Thursday's show, probably, or I'll like slide into it. It was, let me tell you, it was the most bizarre thing. Like 100 and something people bought tickets to this thing, and we had to reschedule it from the first weekend to the second weekend, from the 5th to the 12th. 100 and something people bought tickets to this thing, and they didn't come. The vendors, we had a dozen or so vendors. We had to reschedule it again from the 5th to the 12th. None of the vendors showed up. We had a crowd. We had a crowd of about 25 or so people that came early because they wanted to check out the whiskey. They came early. Um, they checked out the whiskey. They had a couple of cocktails. They enjoyed themselves. They chilled out. The bands were supposed to show up around 1 o'clock. They showed up at 11 o'clock. The people showed up at 11. The bands were supposed to show up at 1 o'clock. None of them, not a one. And I'm telling you, what's the most bizarre thing about this is that like literally nobody came, except for about 20 or so. The crowd was a decent crowd for a regular old Saturday, but not for a music festival. And that was the most bizarre thing. Like this was rescheduled from the 5th to the 12th. So I get like the numbers would have gone down. Like we wouldn't have had 200, 300 people. We'd maybe had 50 or so, but no vendors, no bands. Well, I'm sorry, we had one band show up, but no vendors, one band, like nothing, just totally bizarre. So we didn't obviously air a music festival because we didn't have a music festival. But we're doing it again in April. I'm going to start a Friday night live from the distillery on April 1st, April 1st, April 8th, April 15th. Uh, April 22nd, April 29th, we've got bands booked for all 5 of those nights. I've got Ryan Adam Wells, Paul May, Paul Day, Don May, um, the Kim Bros are going to be there on the 15th. So we've got all 5 weekends in April booked, and we will have the shows airing. Ryan Adam Wells, Greg Day, I called him Paul, the Kim Bros, Don May, then Greg Day again, and then going into May, we're going to have another set of bands, and it may even get bigger and better going into May. Everything's going to be on our Friday night live show starting April 1st. It's going to be lit. We're going to have cocktail at the site. We're going to have cocktails and all that stuff. It's like a $10 cover charge to be able to see the bands. $5 if you get it through Groupon. Just look up Old Humble Distilling Company if you're local. It's going to be off the chain. It's going to be fun. But that's all the housekeeping stuff. Schedule for the rest of the week. I've got another happy hour for tomorrow night, which will be talking about Tales from the Road, I believe. Kind of a recap of our camping trip. Going to be talking about a couple of cool little distilleries that we came across, a couple of cool little whiskeys, maybe even sampling the whiskey on the air. Maybe. We're going to be re-upping our quest for 100,000 views tomorrow morning, and talking about how we can integrate shorts into our strategy, the consumption of shorts. We're going to talk about Wednesday. I'm going to be in Austin, so we're not going to have a happy hour unless I can figure out how to do a happy hour remote from the road. I don't expect that to happen, so don't count on anything on Wednesday, which is why I'm doing this tonight. And then Thursday night, we have another trivia night. I've got classic 80s trivia and I've got Disney trivia. So we can do one of those two or mix them up and do both. I don't know. So we've got 80s trivia, or I could do whiskey trivia. I could just flip a coin, roll a die, and see which one we do. Maybe we'll go back and do whiskey trivia again on Thursday night. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. And then, oh, we got a couple of day in the life videos that we're going to be running. I'm going to be bottling up whiskey at the distillery, so you're going to want to check out what's behind the curtain and what we're doing at the shop. I may even start the plumbing for our steam generator to get the pipes in place and run where they need to go. But for sure, we're going to be bottling up the whiskey because I've got an order going out the door on Thursday, so I need to be bottling up our straight whiskey and yada 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 yada. So all kinds of stuff going on. But you know, that's not the stuff that gives you stress. That's not the stuff that keeps you up at night. That's not the stuff that sends you to the bar to talk to your bartender, which is why I'm here for your happy hour needs. Tonight, let's get us a little updated on what's going on in Ukraine. Oh my God. You see, here's the thing. Most of the battle lines haven't updated in the last 2 weeks. The Russia, I was going to say Soviets. The Russians have taken their places. They're sieging towns. Mariupol, the little town down in the, or it's not a little town, the big city. I think it's the second or third largest city in the country. Might have been the fourth. Basically, they're Houston, I guess, if it's the fourth largest city. Down in the lower southeast side of the country, that has been under siege for a couple of weeks, and that's kind of where all the action has been happening the last 2 weeks or so, give or take. Um, and it sounds like from all the reports that I've been reading and everything that I've been hearing from people in the that active arena, that the concern that we had at the beginning of this thing is coming to fruition. That Putin's strategy, basically, of just leveling infrastructure and leveling the country, leveling cities, and just you know doing what he did in Chechnya, doing what they did in Chechnya, and doing it in Ukraine is kind of what the strategy seems to be, because he can't hold the country. I mean, most all the analysis has been that I guess I could take these out. Most all the analysis has been that he doesn't have enough forces to hold the country. He doesn't have enough forces to occupy Ukraine. The original intention, it seems, was for him to come and, or for the army to come in a lightning strike, take Kyiv, uh, uh, either drive the government out or capture the government, and put them on trial and put them to, well, obviously put them on trial and put them to death. That would have been the plan, or drive them out of the country and have them flee, and then install his own dude Lukashenko. I think would have been the previous Lukashenko or Petroshenko. The names are so damn similar over there in Eastern Europe. I think it was Lukashenko who was the guy who would have been installed in Zelensky's place, and then have a sham referendum joining Ukraine into the Russian Federation and the Russian Empire, and then done and done. Ukraine becomes a province of Russia, a colony of Russia, as Putin declared it to be. Same thing they did with the breakaway Georgian republics, the provinces in Georgia. The same thing they did with Crimea. The same thing they did in the Donbass regions. Uh, just a big pile of horse shit. Um, we all know it's horse shit. We all know the plan. We all know the idea. But it appears that none of that has come to fruition because all of it stalled. All of the planned invasion stalled. The The government didn't flee. The army was far more ass backwards than we thought they were. The Russian army was far more ass backwards than anybody thought it was. They didn't have the men didn't have the skill. The units didn't have. I'm sorry. Machinery didn't have the upkeep. It wasn't advanced. It wasn't maintained. Uh, they didn't have enough supplies. They were running out of food. They were running out of gas. It was just a huge clusterfuck from the start. But they, over the course of the first 2 weeks after everything started, so that Plan A, taking Kyiv, didn't work. So they kind of regrouped, and now they're into the siege mentality and the siege warfare. And not like traditional, like what we think of modern siege warfare as being, where uh, the way we do it theoretically, officially, is you focus on the buildings, you focus on military infrastructure, you focus on uh, uh, logistical supply lines. You do not target civilians. You help evacuate civilians, and then you go in and you fight door to door urban warfare. That's the way we do. That's the way we fight our wars. That's not the way Russia fights their wars, and that was the concern 2 weeks ago. Is what's gonna is this dude just gonna is Putin just gonna order the cities to be just bulldozed and leveled? Anything over 1 story high, turn it to rubble, and then go back and get the 1 story buildings next. Um, and that's what it looks like he's doing in Mariupol, is just going, I think I read today it was something like 80% of the infrastructure was destroyed or damaged, and 40% of that can't be repaired or rebuilt. Um, Something like those numbers, like most of the population was being deported to Russia or has escaped, is fleeing the city. Uh, they demanded the city government surrender and turn the city over. The city government basically gave them the finger, said no, Slava Ukraine. So, I mean, it's tense. It's like what the hell's happening? What the big question that I keep hearing is, what can we do? What can we do? Everybody's bitching about high gas prices or whatever they're bitching about. Stock market's in flux. I lost so much money on my 401k. Oh, boo-hoo. Uh, I mean, you're gonna get your money back in your 401k. I'm not gonna, like the fluctuations in the economy and the or the markets, all the fluctuations and what's the word I'm looking for? It's not dynamism. It's uncertainty. That's it. And starts with a V. What's the word I'm looking for? Um, It'll come to me later. Um, it's right there on the tip of my tongue too. It starts with a V. Uh, v, anyway, it'll come to me later. All the dynamism and ups and downs, and may not be a V. What the word? What is the damn word I'm thinking of? Uh anyway, it's not coming to me. I don't normally do shows on Sunday nights. If y'all know the word I'm thinking of, what's the damn word? Um, it's not vitality. The the God, I hate this. When you know the word, I know the damn word. It'll come back to me later. Um, hey, Tuna Emperor is in the house. Cheers, Tuna. Welcome to the party, my man. All of the V starts with a V. All of all of the Jesus volatility. That's the fucking word. I knew I would get it eventually. Volatility. All the volatility in the market, that'll smooth itself out. Over the long run, the market goes up. We don't need to be worried about that. We don't really need to be worried about gas price either. All the volatility in the gas prices. The oil has come down to pre-war levels. Most of the disruptions that they were worried about have already been priced back in. Gas stations, they buy like a 1 month supply, give or take 2 week supply of oil. So oil goes up, 2 weeks later gas prices go up. Oil goes down, 2 weeks later gas prices go down. Usually, although we know good and damn well gas prices don't tend to go down as far as they go up. And oil companies are 100% taking advantage of this. That's why in the episode a few weeks back when we talked about gas prices, the answer was it's way more complicated than just drill more gas holes. Um, vigor. That's not the word I was looking for. Wasn't vigor. Uh, is that the one? Is that did I get yeah. Oh, so check this out. Uh, when I see the comment on my little Twitcher app here, the uh, emoji is spelled out. But when I actually see it on YouTube over here on my other window or over here on my YouTube window, it actually has the emoji. So that's kind of a fun little quirk of this dumb thing. And Nightbot, of course, reminding you to don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. When we get 550 subscribers right there, we will give away a bottle of whiskey. And that is a live counter. So as the number of subscribers go up, that actually changes. In fact, I will show. Can I do that? Can I do that? I can't subscribe to my own channel, so no, I can't do that. Uh, so there you go. But yeah, I mean, if you're here, you might as well subscribe. So I appreciate the support as well. Thank you. Anyway, but the gas prices are going to start going back down probably in the next 2 weeks because the oil price has gone down. Gas price will probably follow. And let me tell you, road trip, like my family takes road trips. Road trips are not, we ain't, there's no laughing matter. Road trips are fucking expensive. They're fucking expensive, man. Fucking expensive. I mean, there was a legit moment where I was kind of worried. Uh, uh, I was kind of, what? There, what goes? There, what goes? What are you talking about? There, what goes? I was kind of worried. Actually, on our last trip, we went to this park out in Central Texas. There were moments I was a little bit worried. We might not have enough cash on hand to cover the gas bill to get home. But you know, there's worse places to be stuck than Central Texas State Park. Anyway, did the counter move? Oh, 533. Hey, cool. Did it move down? Oh, somebody moved it. So I guess that was you, Tuna, unsubscribing and then subscribing to see it move. Thank you. Thank you for the demonstration. I can't do it on my account because this is my channel. I'd have to go to another account. I'm in the middle of the show and I don't really want to do that. Anyway, so where do we go from here? How do we support? How can we help Ukraine directly? The people of Ukraine, the country of Ukraine. How can we help them directly? Um, well, three ways that I know of that we can help Ukraine directly. If you have military experience, put your money where your mouth is. If you're able to go help and you have military experience, they'll take you in the Foreign Legion. I don't have military experience, they won't take me. I also have a business to run and a family to take care of, so I can't exactly go. But if you've got military experience, they'll take you, they'll pay you. You can go and you can fucking shoot Russians for the first time in your life. This is what you trained for. This is why you signed up. Well, this is if you're my age, this is why you signed up to the military. If you're 20 years younger, you signed up to the military because of 9/11, usually, not 100%. But but to shoot Russians, that was the glory, that was the idea. There's a whole bunch of people that joined the military, retired from the military, and never got to shoot a Soviet. They were defending our country against the Soviet Union and never got to shoot the Soviets. This is your chance, guys. This is your chance. Um, and I'm only saying that half in jest, like for real. If you can and you're inclined to do so, go do so. If you're not inclined to do such thing, Airbnb is a great way to funnel money directly to Ukrainians and Polish people and Ukrainians, Poles and Ukrainians who are helping refugees right now. Find Airbnbs that are owned by individuals. Contact the renter, contact the seller. See if they're housing refugees. A lot of Airbnbs in the Western Ukraine are housing refugees. A lot of Airbnbs Poland and uh, in Poland and that little country right there next to Ukraine that I'm forgetting. Mauritania? No, it's not Mauritania. It's shit. Gotta look at a map. Let me look at a map. Uh, Mon Mon Ukraine map. Map. It's a map. It's a map. It's a map. This is the one I'm looking for. Moldova. That's the one I knew it was somewhere around there. It was something like that. Not Mauritania. I knew that was wrong. That's a island in uh, Mauritania. That's an island? No, it's not an island, but it's in Africa, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, though that money goes directly to the individual. You know, goes through Airbnb. They take their cut, but then it goes directly to the individual, going through PayPal or whatever. That's a great way to get money to people who are helping refugees, helping people who are fleeing the east, going to the west, fleeing Ukraine, going into Poland. Great way to help those people directly with cash payments. And spoiler alert, Airbnbs in Poland and Ukraine are cheap as fuck. Like a week for 80 bucks. Like you can't get a toilet for 80 bucks for a week in the United States. And if you did, you don't want to stay. You don't want to sleep in a toilet. I don't. I don't know what your kink is, but I don't want to sleep in a toilet. Let's put it that way. Um, and I'll run back through chat in just a second. I see it's kind of lit up there. The third way, of course, OnlyFans. Uh, there's OnlyFans and Pornhub and uh, those services that go directly to creators. You know, you can seek out Ukrainian creators uh, and transfer money directly to them, assuming, of course, they're in Ukraine. If you want to support them in Ukraine, if they're Ukrainian and making porn or I'm sorry, videos in Germany, you know, that's not quite the same, but that is certainly a way. Yes, Moldova. Thank you, John Jacobs. You got me. Uh, Young humble. Let's scroll up through chat real quick because I can do this. I've got my little widget here, Twidget, working. So here we've got tuna. I need to make this. No, I can't make this bigger. Uh, StreamYard. Yeah, StreamYard does do this, but StreamYard is also, and I will go on record saying this, StreamYard is trash. And to be completely fair, I don't know if it's StreamYard specifically that's trash or if it was going, you know, the translation through my web browser going into StreamYard that made it trash. It was trash. And it had been trash for about a year, and I got tired of fighting with that trash. I went back to the stuff that works, and I'll talk about this tomorrow in my quest for 100,000K or 100,000 views. StreamYard, it just wasn't working for like a year. I couldn't get it to work right. So screw StreamYard. They can eat my butt and go straight to hell. Um, and there it comes back again. Um, counter. John Jacobs joined chat, so cheers to John. John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. So, plot by the squids and the humans are eating it up by. Okay. I gotta figure out a way to make this bigger. Can I make this bigger? Yeah, I can make that bigger. Let's bring it down a little bit lower, like that. Yeah, make it a little bit bigger. Um, where am I in chat? There it is. Back to the squid stir, squid tuna emperor. Change those avatar flags. Change the avatar flags? Oh yeah, well yeah. That that's like the lowest, the least effort of support. You know, you change your avatar flag to the Ukrainian flag, and it's like, I'm helping. Like you're not doing anything, man. Just stop it. Uh, it's cool seeing the Ukrainian flags on Twitter and in Facebook and all that stuff, but a lot of people uh, stop there and they don't do anything else. And uh, strongly encourage, if you can, if you have the means, if you're able. If you're not able, if you don't have the means, if you can't, if you legitimately can't, that's fine. You know, call up your congressman, call up your senators, and tell them to support policies that that help and support. We're sending weapons, we're sending arms, we're sending things to help them. There's going to come a point in time where it's going to be hard to ignore the humanitarian crisis that's happening. That's what got us involved with Libya. That's what got us involved with Libya. French planes attacked Tripoli. Was it Tripoli? Yeah. French planes attacked in Tripoli because there was a whole column of Libyan armor that was going to basically wipe out a city, which is what they've done in Mariupol. Mariupol. I'm going to pronounce it Mariupol, and it's probably incorrect. But born in Ohio, lives in Texas. I don't know names. Sue me. Um, there's going to come a point in time where we can't ignore the humanitarian crisis, and we have to do something. We have to do something actively other than sit back and provide economic support and economic sanctions and military support. And I firmly believe that the economic sanctions are going to fuck Russia royally and deeply, and they're about to open up their stock exchange tomorrow for the first time in I think almost a month. So we're going to see just a devastating wave of a bunch of bad stuff happening. They're about to default on their debt for the first time in I think 100 years. Uh, it's not going to be pretty. What's about to happen in Russia economically is not going to be pretty. But the good news is because the sanctions take effect and it takes time for those to kind of roll through, all of those ripple effects have already been priced into our markets and been priced into all of our commodities. So very limited blowback, I hope. I expect, fingers crossed, because recessions are bad. I don't like them. They're very, very bad. It makes it hard to raise money and sell products when you need to raise money and sell products. Um, but if you're able, if you can, strongly support it, far beyond just simply changing your avatar. Because, I mean, bravo, that's cool, but, whatever. Um, but the nation of Ukraine was also Soviet. Yes. And see, that's okay. So a lot of what I was pondering about over the course of the last week when I was disconnected from all the updates and reports was what the fuck were they thinking? What was he thinking? Like for real. Like we kind of have an understanding of the history between the two countries. And if you want to do a deep dive in the history, there's scores of videos out there. Hank Green has a really good couple of videos. Uh, history, animated history, history uncovered, feature history. There's a whole bunch of history channels out there, real history channels, not like the History Channel that doesn't do history anymore, it does alien nonsense. But real history channels on the YouTubes that talk about the history of Ukraine and the Viking exploration that went down to Ukraine, down through the Dnieper, established the Kievan Rus that then spread from Kiev out into the different pockets, and then the same people that started the Kievan Rus started established a city up in Moscow, and there were like five fiefdoms, and they were disjointed, and they came together, and they were put under pressure by the Golden Horde, and then they were subjugated by the Golden Horde and paid tribute to the Golden Horde, and then they reunited under the Rus in Moscow. Basically it was the same people group, and they reunited up there in Moscow, and reformed their the Russian Empire at that point, um, and kind of grew out again from there, and the Kievan Rus established that Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Russia, then the Russian Empire, and then from there Russian Empire goes into the Soviet Union, and the area that is Ukraine was separated out from the other uh, Soviet republics in the early 1900s. They were an independent nation for a period of time between the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union, and then they were rolled back into the Soviet Union. Um, and then the Soviets were dicking around with the population, moving in Russians, moving out Ukrainians, and kind of colonizing that area. But then after the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine gained their independence again. We've known Ukraine as a country ever since the mid 90s, early 90s, when Ukraine established their independence uh, from the Soviet Union and were established as an independent country. And Russia and the United States agreed to protect their borders if they gave up their nuclear weapons. They gave up their nuclear weapons, the third largest nuclear arsenal in the entire world. They said, here, take them, but we need guarantees that you'll protect our borders. And of course, Putin says uh, that was an agreement with the Soviet Union. That was an agreement with the Soviets because we said that our agreement not to expand NATO was an agreement with the Soviets. So they say that the agreement with Ukraine was an agreement with the Soviets, except it wasn't an agreement with the Soviets, um, which is fucked up. Yet another bullshit excuse for him to invade Ukraine. Let me scroll back through chat one more time. So the history is sordid and interesting all by itself. Uh, Moldova, yes, thank you. Uh, Young Humble, that's me. Tuna, uh, talking about German prawns. Wait, what? No. No, I wasn't talking about German porn. Uh, I was simply referring to if you're going to directly support OnlyFans creators from Ukraine, make sure they're in Ukraine and not in Germany because you want to send resources to the people there. Although I'm not sure what money buys in Ukraine right now. They don't want cash; they want guns and bullets. So yeah, I assume if there's a Ukrainian content creator in Ukraine, they're not creating content; they're shooting weapons and defending their homeland. So anyway, support those people if you can. There you go. Bacon's here. John Jacob, howdy. Don't forget to subscribe, please. And also, you can find us on all of the socials, including Reddit. We just started a subreddit. Old Humble Whiskey is the subreddit. If you're on Reddit and that's the thing you do. So there you go. Yes, I mean like people. Okay, come over here. Let me see if I can. Yeah, and that's you know, I that's exactly what I mean. And it's that cheap. It's the same cheap it's what we called in the church cheap evangelism, cheap Christianity, cheap activism. You're not really doing anything. It feels like you're doing something. You're emotionally supporting something, but we can actually do things in this country, at least. We can actively do things. We can call our representatives, which also doesn't feel like anything. But you can call your representatives, you can call your congressmen, you can call your senators, you can call the White House, you can call the people we have elected to uh, to represent us. We can call those people and say, "This is what we want to happen." Uh, we can we can go to news sources that don't repeat lies. We can uh, we can triangulate our information so that we know what we're reading is truthful or at least accurate. It may not be truthful because it may have a bias to it. That's fair. So it may not be completely truthful, but at least it's accurate. So when you see people repeating Russian literally repeating Russian propaganda that is not accurate, like Nazis run Ukraine's government. That's not true. That is 100% untrue. Neo Nazis do not run Ukraine's government. And that's one of the reasons, by the way. Well, we'll get to that in a second. And you don't repeat that information, and B, call it out for what it is, that it's not true. Um, and then find news sources that triangulate. Like for example, Russia was reporting that they had only lost like 500 units or 500 soldiers, when uh, intelligence sources and uh, news apparatuses from not just the United States but also Europe and other places were confirming that they've lost roughly a quarter of the force that's been attacking, which in raw numbers, which and this is another thing that gives us hope that Ukraine's going to stand their ground. In raw numbers, that's more men than the United States lost in 20 years in Afghanistan. It's more years than the United States lost in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's more men than the United States has lost in warfare total since the 90s. That's in modern warfare terms, losing 10,000 men on the battlefield is spectacular failure. It is spectacular failure. And they've lost a quarter of their attacking forces. Something like, I think they're attacking with 50 or 60,000. They've lost something like 15,000 men, maybe close to 20. But again, I'm not 100% sure about the exact number because those numbers kind of fluctuate. It depends on the day you're seeing it and day you're hearing it. But intelligence reports, public sourced intelligence, open source intelligence reports, on the ground in Ukraine, which again can't necessarily be trusted, that they may because they may be overinflating their numbers, but uh, foreign sources reporting on intelligence information shouldn't be overinflating those numbers. Like they don't want to give a more rosy picture than is actually happening. They're much more careful about that shit than they were back in the early 2000s when we had a mad rush for our own war based on false intelligence information. But let me get this off my screen real quick. But that's a concrete, true way that we can support the effort being done over there is simply peddling in reality, peddling in truth, peddling in facts that we know or can feel fairly certain are true, and not just oh, I don't want to accept that because that's I don't believe in that source. I don't want to accept that, but I'll believe this source that is also just as kooky and unconfirmed. Just because a source fits your narrative does not mean it's a good source. Triangulate those sources. Always, always, always triangulate. Get three, because between the three, there's going to be common information that uh, you can triangulate the facts. You can triangulate the truth and understand what's going on. Let me bring this down just a little bit. I knocked that camera up a little ways earlier. But that's another way that you can better understand what's going on, better repeat the truth, and ask our representatives to represent us based on the truth and not by repeating false claims that are nonsense. We don't need to rush into and we don't need to rush into a war. If we commit troops and we commit forces and we commit hardware to this fight, it will almost certainly be an elective war. I don't think Russia is going to be stupid enough to attack Poland or Moldova or Latvia or Estonia or any other uh, NATO country. I don't think Putin's that stupid, but Putin was stupid enough to attack Ukraine. And if Ukraine had already been a part of NATO, that never would have happened. And he took a shot when he had his chance to take a shot. And there's other reasons beyond that. And I do want to get to that later. But I also want to kind of scroll through chat because I like my chatizens, my citizens of chat. Ting Ting's in the house. What's up, Ting Ting? I haven't seen that name in a while. Um, Worried about America's borders. Well, I'd be worried about America's borders too, but uh, our borders aren't under assault by any foreign power. So, I'm not really worried about our borders being coming under assault. They're there. We have a security force on our borders that, by the way, is doing a remarkably good job at preventing illegals or illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, illegal people coming illegally into the country from coming illegal into the country. Every time you see those reports that we caught 140,000 people since the beginning of 2021, or we've caught 14, or we captured 14,000 pounds of meth, or we've caught, whatever. Every time you see those numbers, that means our border security is working. So there's concern about our border, and then there's rational concern about our border. Our rational concern about our border is that It's working, and it's working fine. There's no there. The only crisis on our borders is in certain newsrooms that want you to think there's a crisis on our borders. There's a woefully underfunded court system for uh, uh, for court cases, for people seeking their day in court, seeking their uh, uh, amnesty cases, seeking their hearings. There's woefully backlogged courts. There's woefully underfunded courts. There's woefully underfunded and backlogged systems for tracking, uh, for onboarding, for tracking, for maintaining those files. There was a tremendous amount of harm done to those systems over the course of a 4-year period that is desperately trying to be healed and fixed. But as far as people coming across, that's not a thing. It's not a problem. It's not an issue because those people are being caught. They're being put into detentions. They're being put into. It's no more a problem now than it's ever been. It's the problem we have right now is the actual processing of people through the proper channels of our administrative and bureaucratic systems. Um, and truth be told, you legally speaking and humanely speaking, we can't just put all those people on a fucking plane and send them to Guatemala and drop them off at the airport. We have a responsibility. We have so worried about our borders makes sense on one level, but actually, uh, in the same sense that what we do at our borders to protect democracy, to protect human rights, to protect civility, and to support the rule of law is exactly why we need to be supporting the people in Ukraine and the government in Ukraine, because we respect law, we respect human rights, we respect civility, we respect international agreement. That's what we do. That's who we are as a people. And if we're not going to do it on our borders, if we're not going to do it on their borders, then we are not who we say we are. And who we say we are is a people that believes in these things. We believe in a country's right to determine its own future. We believe in a country's sovereignty. We believe in a country's border. If we believe our borders are unviolable, and sacrosanct lines in the sand, then we should also believe that their borders are unviolable, sacrosanct lines in the sand. And if we're gonna send armed forces to our borders to shoot unarmed people who are trying to cross our borders, the least we could do is say that it would be fully appropriate and 100% supported for them to send people to their border to shoot armed people trying to come across their border to actually kill their people. Um, because that's who we are. That's what we believe in. If we actually believe in what we say we believe in, then we should do both. And by following the rule of law at our border, we can also demand that they follow the rule of law at their border, and that Russia follows the rule of law within their borders. It's much easier to maintain the moral high ground when the moral high ground you stand on is actual moral high ground and not just this figment that you've invented that you stand upon, but you're really down in the ditches with everybody else. It's much, much, much harder to tell people we believe in civil rights, we believe in equality, we believe in that men are endowed with certain unalienable rights by their creator when we actually believe that men are endowed with certain unalienable rights by their creator. If we don't actually believe that, it's much harder for us to say we believe that. And then it's also much harder for us to act on that belief internationally with other people. And that's why this stuff matters. That's why it matters at home. That's why law and justice and civil rights matters at home. Because when they pull this shit over in Ukraine, we should be able to stand up and say that's not right. That's what makes that's what makes that issue, that whole little issue we had with Iraq, such a big deal back in '08 or 2000, 2008. That whole little operation. Uh, what was it? It wasn't Desert Shield. Desert Desert Storm turned to Desert Shield, turned into Desert. Oh shit! I don't even know what George Bush called it. Mission accomplished, whatever he called it. Uh, we had the cover of the United Nations. We had the United Nations uh, uh, Security Council resolution on our side saying they didn't do A, B, C, so we're going in to enforce the law. Russia doesn't have that. They don't have a United Nations Security Council resolution on their side, so they can't go. They can't go and say, you know what? I'm going to change my screen real quick because I am woefully behind on following up with chat. I'll just put it over there so y'all can see what y'all are saying, and I'll catch up to it. I promise I will. But that's one of the justifications. That's one of the bullshit justifications that Putin is using. That we went into a country for regime change. Why can't they? They've used that justification with Syria. They've used that justification with Ukraine. They've thrown Libya back in our face. They throw all this shit back in our face, and it's important for us to remember the history and the facts because Russia, Putin, specifically, because he's done this in the last 3 years, he gives a slightly alternative version of history. Russia has a different perspective of what happened in World War II than what we have, and legitimately, our two countries experienced World War II very, very differently. And they have a very different history of what happened. But a lot of that history coincides. A lot of our history wrote the Soviets out because of the 1950s and 1960s. A lot of their history wrote the Americans out and the British out because of the 1950s and 1960s. But having the benefit of almost 100 years now of hindsight, we can look at that and say, okay, this is where the true histories merge together and where reality is versus what the narrative. There's the narrative and then there's the history, and we know that there's a World War II narrative on both sides. There's also a World War II history that combines the two together, just like there's a third World War II narrative. Um, but to their credit, Germany has done a very, very good job of sticking to of not sugarcoating their role in two devastatingly horrible world wars and the atrocities that country committed and their commitment to not commit those atrocities again. Unfortunately, excuse me. Unfortunately, we have a country in Russia and a dictator in Putin who is not committed to that reality anymore, and will make up nonsense like Nazis are running Ukraine and they have to denazify the government of Ukraine, all because of one division, the Azov forces down in the southern part of the country. That were fighting the Russians in the Donbass region, and then were incorporated into the National Guard of the Ukrainian army. But that does not follow from that to Nazis are running the government of Ukraine. That's preposterous. What's more accurate is on the borders of Russia was a country which was looking to westernize, looking to reform its economy, and install public institutions which were not grifting off the system, like uh, the petroleum company that ran the pipelines. Uh, Bursa, Bur, is it Bursa? Whatever, y'all know it in chat. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure y'all can remember it in chat because that was the whole Hunter Biden's on the board of blah blah blah. Just so you know, Rick Perry, our inglorious former governor here in Texas, who couldn't remember 3 things that he was going to get rid of when he became president, also got 2 of his cronies on the same board. Wrote the names down on a piece of paper and said, "Here, put these guys on the board too." One of the reforms was making sure that the head of that company wasn't taking a little bit off the top, because what happens is Putin puts one of his oligarchs in, just like he had one of his oligarchs as the Lukashenko, one of his oligarchs as the president of Ukraine. He had one of his oligarchs as the head of that company, and the head of that company would be taking a little bit of cash and laundering Putin's ill-gotten gains through that company to make sure that Putin was getting the money that he needed and, well, that he wanted to make him the richest man on the fucking planet. Part of the reforms that were put in Ukraine, which helps them, which conforms their economy more to the European Union model, which brings them into the European Union, was getting those guys out of those companies and those guys out of the Ukrainian government, which is one of the reasons why they had that whole revolution to kick Lukashenko out of office in the first place. That was one of the reforms. Another one of the reforms is reforming the military so that it can be integrated into the European Union and NATO systems, making it a better military, stronger military, and an integrated military. But that's also, as we see with the Russian military, that's also a very, very, very wide open spigot for laundering money from Russian sources through the military in order to get the money into the banking system and into the private accounts, so that he then has access to his money. So 2 major reforms: economic reform as well as military reform, right on the borders of Russia, so that say 15% of the GDP production of the country, maybe more than 15% of the GDP production of the country, is not going back to Putin's oligarchs and Putin's bank accounts. And as Russia's population continues to decline at about 7% a year, and their GDP continues to decline at about, it's not quite 7%, it's more like 4%, but as the population continues to decline, the GDP is going to continue to decline as well. The 44 million population in Ukraine, which has been fairly steady up until now, was going to slowly begin to start rise. And over the course of the next 25 to 50 years, Ukraine's economy and population would have overtaken Russia's, because Russia, as a country in decline, was slowly but surely going to be overtaken by the most populous country in Eastern Europe. This, not denazification bullshit and all that nonsense, not to protect Russian speakers and guard the ancestral homelands and blah blah blah, whatever all that crap is. That's the simple reason. You're going to have a country right on the border of Russia, which would be, over the course of the next 2 generations, eclipsing Russia. Putin, very likely, he's not going to live 50 more years. He's not going to be in power for 50 more years. But with Ukraine integrated into the European Union and its military integrated into NATO, Ukraine was going to go on an entirely different trajectory than Russia and Belarus. And with that entirely different trajectory, you have one country on the rise, one country on the decline, and a stark difference between 2 systems. And where have we ever seen that happen before, where you have a stark difference in 2 systems and a people who are able to make a choice, it results in the collapse of empires. It results in the collapse of economic systems. That's how we beat the Soviet Union. We didn't beat the Soviet Union with tanks and missiles and rocket ships and satellites, and it absolutely went a great way to protecting us from the Soviet Union protecting themselves from us. But we defeated the Soviet Union with supermarkets, with Pepsi, with blue jeans, with rock and roll music, with uh, with Sprite and Coke and comfortable cotton shirts, and we defeated the Soviet Union with uh, with it sounds Pollyannish, but we beat the Soviet Union with freedom and and ideals and the ability uh, to go and do and be. And if you look at the growth of, I mean, you look at the different trajectories that North Korea and South Korea took after the mid 1970s. Uh, Through the 50s and 60s, North Korea and South Korea were neck and neck as far as production goes. But right around the late 70s, early 80s, North Korea goes down, South Korea goes up, and the gap between the two starts to spread. Same way with the Soviet Union and the United States. Same way with East Europe and West Europe. All across the world. The economic reforms that went into place in the early 80s, the late 70s and early 80s, that's what buried the Soviet Union. And if you have two countries side by side sharing a border uh, with Russia and Ukraine, and the freedoms and openness and political reforms that you have going in place or had going in place in Ukraine versus the drastic opposite of what was going on in Russia, that's what brings down empires. That's what brings down authoritarian regimes. That's what brings down entire systems of operation where um, hmm, just had PowerShell pop up on my screen over here. That's not supposed to be there. I wonder. I wonder if I've got a virus. Anyway, but that's what brings down entire systems. That's what brings down entire corrupt governments, and that is one of the many reasons why the Chinese government had to reform in the 90s. Why they had to reform their economy in the 90s was because they were being left behind. They needed to integrate in with the World Trade Organization. They needed to integrate in uh, Western companies. They needed to be able to integrate with Western logistical systems, but they couldn't give up their control of the government controlled people. So they kind of have this two system where they have an authoritarian government and a semi-free economy. But they have gone full draconian with the social controls. Uh, and the ironic thing about this whole invasion of Ukraine is the oligarchs in Russia being cut off from the Western banking system are going to basically only be able to use Chinese banking, Chinese technology, Chinese banking. Russia is going to end up being a large vassal state to the Chinese government. Uh, and there is no way, there is no way that when put China next to Russia, that Russia survives ideologically and socially next to China. If they get driven further and further and further deeper into China's influence because of China being there, just simply being there. Um, that's a whole nother line of thought that I look. We hiked like 16 hours worth of hikes. We had 4 days. We had four 4-hour hikes over the course of 4 days. Uh, so something like 25 miles of hikes. You get a lot of time in the wilderness to think about things, and this was one of the things that was on my mind a lot. I'd thought a lot. I've given you ponder the idea of what happens to the game theory idea of what happens to Russia in this process as they get pushed out of the Western sphere and into the Eastern sphere. What happens to Russia? What happens to Russia if they have to snuggle up close to China and all their cell phone towers or Huawei towers? What happens? There's a reason that they're not allowed in Europe. Um, anyway, something to ponder, something to think about, something to consider. Let me scroll up through chat here. I know we've had a whole lot because I see it scrolling. I just haven't had a chance to read it. Uh, there it is. I'm going to make my chat box bigger here. Can I see that? Is it bigger? Yeah, it's bigger. All right. If I scroll up, Iraqi freedom. That's the one I was thinking of. Thank you, Moose Gal. Moose Gal's in chat. Cheers, Moose Gal. Okay, I'm going to switch over to this window so I can highlight chat as I just scroll down chat and highlight it. Bacon is Ting Ting's back. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, I found my place. Uh, I mean, y'all seen chat rolling through. True words, Ting Ting. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, protecting and defending our own borders is 100% important, and we're doing that. So, uh, protecting and defending our ideals is just as important. Uh, and just like men with guns protect us from men with guns, men with pens and men with ideas protect us from other men with pens and ideas. And the most important thing when you're waging a war of ideas and ideals is not only that your ideas and ideals are better than the other ideals and ideas, but also that you believe them and you actually live them. It's not enough to say we support the troops if you don't actually do things that support the troops. It's not enough to say you support police if you don't actually do things that support police. It's not enough to say that you support teachers or children or, you believe in the right to life or whatever it is. If you don't actually do the things to support police and teachers and the right to life and the life of children and mothers and fathers and if you support the veterans but don't do things to support the veterans, you don't really support the veterans. You just say you support veterans, which is no different than putting up a flag on your little icon on your social media page. And that's you know it's not enough to say it. You have to do it too. And that's how we protect our ideals. We don't just say we believe in freedom. We actually do things to protect freedom. Our Constitution, our founding documents don't say citizens are endowed with certain unalienable rights. Our founding documents say all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. And that includes short little men with brown skin that come from central Mexico, as well as short little white men. I think they're mostly 5'7" ish. They're short little white men from Eastern Europe who speak funny languages and have a bunch of vowels in their names. We believe both of those people are endowed with certain unalienable rights because not citizens, all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. And if we believe in our own ideals, then we stand up for those ideals, whether it's on the southwest border of the United States or the eastern border of Ukraine or the northern border of Poland or the southern border of Latvia. We stand up for those values and we believe those things. And that's why this stuff matters. It would be great if we could just plug our ears and close our eyes and wall ourselves off from the rest of the world. But the fact is, when freedom dies somewhere, freedom dies. And if we believe in freedom, if we believe in that sort of thing, then that's the sort of thing that we should stand up for. And if we don't stand up for that freedom before it dies, then we don't stand up for our own ideals. And if we don't stand up for our own ideals, do we really believe them? And if we don't really believe them, maybe we should just quit saying that. And then we just do whatever the fuck we want. And that's also how superpowers die. By not standing up for their ideals. That's how empires fall. They don't stand up for their ideals. They don't do the things that they say they believe in, and they don't They don't simply defend their ideas and ideals. They choose instead to defend dirt. Uh, and countries aren't made of dirt. Countries are made of ideas and ideals and and beliefs that we may not have always been what we want to be, but there's still a bright future ahead where we can be what we claim we should be. And we can move towards that. We can always move towards that. We can always acknowledge that we weren't perfect and continue working towards being perfect. But if you choose to ignore the fact that we weren't always perfect, you can't move towards being more perfect. And one of the great things about our founding documents is that they say in order to form a more perfect union, not to form a perfect union, not to form a perfect government, not to form a perfect country, not to form a perfect people, but simply a more perfect union. And more perfect unions get formed every single day. Every single day we move towards a more perfect union. We'll never be a perfect union because we'll always fall just a little bit short of that ideal, and each new generation will interpret that ideal, hopefully on a higher level. But we can always, 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 always continue to work towards a more perfect union. And that's what our documents say. That's what we believe in as a people. And it's should never be considered cast in stone. We have a fifth article. I think it's the fourth or fifth article in our Constitution, which specifically lays out ways that we can amend and update our Constitution so that it can continue to be a more perfect document and a more perfect union. Um, but that's what we as a people do. We strive to be better. Every generation. Well, I want to say every generation, but I'll say every generation except one strives to be better than the generation that came before it. And we can continue to do better, and we can do both. We can stand up for our ideals here and stand up for our ideals there, and that's what we as a people do, and that's how empires, that's how countries, that's how superpowers remain superpowers. We fight for our ideals, and we try to spread those ideals to other people, and continuously carry that torch. Now, the practical aspects of that are that sometimes you have to make some really brutal decisions and some really challenging decisions and climb into bed with some folks that you might not have wanted to climb into bed with, but they may be brutal dictators, but they're friendly brutal dictators. And we did that for 60 years. For 60 years, we climbed into bed with brutal dictators who were friendly, brutal dictators. And we still get in bed with friendly, brutal dictators. Um, but we can continue, even with friendly, brutal dictators, we can continue to tell them, look, you've got, we're concerned about human rights. We want you to do better. Da 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 da. We can at least say the words. And push them to continuously reform, even if they're not going to, even if we know they're not going to. But we can always make sure they know that if there's a revolution coming, we're always going to take the new guy, and hopefully, I don't know. That's the messy geopolitical reality of having to pick sides when you're a superpower. It, it sucks. It's a shitty place to be. But hopefully, you get to pick the side of the guy who's going to uh, share the same ideals and work in the same way as you do, where you share the same ideals and you work towards a more perfect union every day. Uh, that was a deep hole to dig out of, but I think I dug my way out. Back to chit chat over here. Scrolling. Uh, Tuna, John Jacobs, Dots. Uh, Buy Silver Guns, Food and Ammo. Yes, see that you get the idea. Silver Guns, Food and Ammo. That's the stuff. Uh, that's actual support. Uh, yeah, you definitely need bait for fishing because tuna is good eats. Um, uh, I think that's a fair assumption too. Uh, I think that's a fair assumption too, Bacon. But see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When they the reports I've seen of people, the stories that I've read, the videos that I've watched of people fleeing, they like grab 2 bags and they just fuck off. They get out of there. Um, what's happening to a large extent, uh, there's a whole discussion I think to be had about what's going on the ground in Ukraine. I just figured out how to make the font bigger on chat. Well, I can read it now. Um, there's a whole discussion to be had about what's going on in Ukraine today, right now, and rhetoric surrounding the Second Amendment. There's a uh, the Second Amendment is in our Constitution. It defends our right to bear arms. Uh, the right to bear arms is an unviolable right. We have that. It's not granted by our Constitution. It's not given to us by our Congress. And we have that right, as it's been interpreted over the years, to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government uh, and protect our freedoms. And the reality is, in the history of the Second Amendment, is it has used to protect it has been used to protect our rights from a tyrannical government exactly 0 times. Zero. Um, because we have a very good military. And our military is very good uh, at doing what they do. I mean, right now, in a modern military sense, from like 1,000 miles away, they can, 10,000 miles away, they can guide a drone from 1,000 miles away to send a rocket up Uranus, not the planet. So there's a whole discussion to be had. Not tonight. I don't want to discuss it tonight. Tonight's not the night to do that. But um, there's a whole discussion to be had about that. That there are fewer. Let's see. There's fewer guns in Ukraine in private hands than cars in Houston, Texas, in private hands. Um, and yet, the people of Ukraine are holding off Russia. So there's a discussion to be had about that, but not tonight. Tonight's not the night to discuss that. I'm more interested in the broader picture of what the fuck is going on. Why does it matter to us? Why does what's going on in Ukraine matter to us as a people in the United States? And why Putin thought it was a really good idea to invade Ukraine? I I'm I am very likely going to go to my grave thinking, hopefully, I will go to my grave. There's Mooskow joining the chat. Howdy, Mooskow. I will very hopefully go to my grave, knowing that this invasion of Ukraine by Russia was a fatal mistake and brought down Putin's government, because Putin's government, his regime, is a dangerous destabilizing force in both Europe and the United States, and it's challenging. It it's challenging because there's not necessarily there's an overarching ideology, I think, of restoring Russia to its imperial glory and restoring the Soviet Union and restoring the power of Russia and the Soviet Union as another superpower, as a counterbalance to the United States. That horse has left the barn. I don't think that'll ever happen again. Um, Russia is and forever will be, at this point, I think, a former power. They're a nuclear tipped foreign power, but they're a former power, not foreign. They're a nuclear tipped former power, just like the United Kingdom is a nuclear tipped foreign power, but they're not going to be a superpower again. That horse has left the barn unless something radical changes. But the deeper underlying theme is, there's the restoration of the former glory, but there's also the just destabilizing the current system. Because I think, my opinion here, that Putin sees the world systems that have kind of been put together, the New World Order, as George Bush the Elder would call it, is really kind of excluding Russia and treating Russia not as the power they were, but the power they are, in much the way they treat Britain and France and Germany as the powers they are, not the powers they were. And in order to regain that glory of Russia of the past, he needs to destabilize the systems that we have, which includes NATO, which includes the G8, which includes the supremacy of the dollar, which includes all kinds of things that kind of work together to maintain order and it maintains order. Make sure everything stays. My nose itches. Make sure everything stays predictable. And Putin's overarching goal of restoring the Russian glory is met with this tactic of destabilizing the world order so that he can, because the world order doesn't include a resurgent Russia. A world order includes Russia in its place. And in its place is alongside minor powers, secondary powers like France and Russia and UK. And I mean, don't get me wrong, France and Russia and UK, they're major political powers, but as far as economic and military might goes, they're secondary powers. There's the United States and then everybody else. I don't think Russia wants it to be that way. I don't really think Russia even wants it to be the United States and everybody else politically. I think they want it to be Russia, the United States, and then everybody else politically. Or at least that's the way Putin wants it to be. But that whole notion of destabilizing everything, destabilizing NATO, destabilizing the EU, destabilizing. There's a whole lot of evidence that the whole Brexit campaign was financed and funded in a large part through Russian means, with Russian money. There's at least one political party here in the United States that received a lot of Russian money. There's one specific political action group, well-connected political group that received a lot of Russian. We know they received a lot of Russian money and used that Russian money to make political ads. We know this happened. There was one political group that had a literal Russian spy working with them. She got deported. Gorgeous redhead. She got arrested and deported. That's why we know Maria something or another. They're always a Maria. And this was all in an effort to destabilize our electoral system and our political system over here. We know this happened. We know this happened over the course of 4 years, 6 years, from about 2014 to about 2020-ish. Yeah, we know this happened. Now, the depth and extent and depth and breadth and extent of it is debatable, but the depth and breadth and extent being debatable doesn't mean it didn't happen. We know this happened. There were hackers deeply involved in all kinds of stuff and spreading misinformation and unreliable nonsense. We know this, and that's the destabilizing nature. And focusing on individual countries like Hungary and Slovakia and France and England, and focusing on the individual little bits. That whole Brexit thing was supposed to be super destabilizing for the EU. It wasn't as destabilizing. It was very destabilizing for a few years until they finally did it, and then it wasn't destabilizing anymore. Um, but they tried to, well, they did a pretty good number on Hungary. Uh, Austria, they tried to do stuff with Austria but didn't succeed. They tried to do stuff in France and they did not succeed in France. Um, that's the more challenging. So I hope, I firmly hope that this war, this invasion of Ukraine, will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, in a Russian system that's been a Russian political system. Oh, excuse me. That seems to have been getting more and more and more tenuous, and I don't want to say unstable, but uh, less stable over the course of the last several years. Um, I really do hope that the history books will be able to look back and say this was where it started, and this is what undid Putin's regime in the same way that Afghanistan undid the Soviet regime, uh, and bled their military, bled their uh, coffers dry for a couple of decades. Let's scroll back through chat real quick. Holy cow, it's 11:30. Um, let's see here. Scrolling. We believe glory. There's a whole lot. Damn, y'all have been active, and I appreciate that. Ting Ting says, "What's this? Moose Guy's Corner. Uh, the yellow cake was awesome. What did Moose Cow say? What did I miss that? Operation Iraqi Freedom. That's what it was. Thank you, Operation Iraqi Freedom. I think I saw that a couple of places. Yes, thank you. That was the operation. That was the third operation in Iraq. Operation Desert Storm turned into Desert Shield with the no-fly zones, and then that turned into Iraqi Freedom, which was the freedom brought to you by cruise missiles and tanks. Tanks for all the fish. So long. Tanks for all the fish. Let me move this light. I think that'll make me a little bit prettier. Yeah, that makes me just a little bit prettier. Um, back over here to, can I just move this over here? If I do this and I do this, what if I did this too? Will this make it, can I make it? No, I can't make it bigger. Damn it. All right. I'll just scroll down chat. I can look at the camera and scroll down chat while I'm looking. Maybe you do this. Nope. Put that there. Good. Have I lost frames? No, I did not lose frames doing that. Hot damn. Good. Okay. There we go. All right. Scrolling. If Russia didn't have nukes, yep, no one would. And see, that's the paradox. Okay, so when I was a kid in the 80s, there was the mutually assured destruction. If you attacked us, then we would launch our nukes, you would launch your nukes, everybody dies, right? But over the last decade or so, this kind of a nuclear ransom philosophy has come about where if you have nukes, you can do whatever you want because nobody's going to fight back out of fear of a nuclear war. Even in the 60s and the 50s and 60s and 70s, we didn't fight Russia directly. In North Korea, Russia didn't fight directly in Korea. We fought alongside the South Koreans. The Chinese and North Koreans fought together. Russia didn't fight in North Korea. In Vietnam, reportedly, Russian fighters, Russian pilots flew Russian aircraft in support of the North Vietnamese. But Russian soldiers didn't fight in North Vietnam. American soldiers fought in South Vietnam. Russian soldiers didn't fight in North Vietnam. In Afghanistan, Russians fought in Afghanistan. American soldiers stayed out of Afghanistan. Um, when the Soviet Union was invading Afghanistan. And all the other hotspots that popped up around the world, we didn't fight directly, or we would pay the proxies to fight each other. Iran fought Iraq. Iraq fought Iran. We would the rebels in Guatemala were supported by Cuba. We supported Contra rebels because we agreed not to fight Cuba for some strange reason. We never went head to head, army to army. We never fought directly. But now there's this extrapolation of that whole philosophy that if you have a nuclear arsenal, you can do whatever you want. We have the power to go into any country we want to go into. We have the power, we have the strength, we can go into any country we want to go into, level the capital, capture the government, replace them with another government in another city that actually still stands. We can do that. We've done it 3 times in this century. In the last 22 years, we've done it 3 times? Twice. We've done it 2 times for sure. I'm trying to think of what the 3rd time was. We did it in Afghanistan. We did it in Iraq. We did it in. We couldn't do it in Somalia in the 90s because Somalia didn't have a government to capture. Um, uh, all through the Arab Spring states, we didn't go in and capture those governments. The mobs went and captured the governments and replaced the governments themselves. We didn't have to go in and do anything. We could have done it in Syria. We didn't. Russia did it in Syria, but instead of taking the government out, they protected the government. But we would never be able to do that if the country actually had nukes. North Korea knows this. This is why North Korea wanted nukes. This is why Iran wants nukes. This is why, and also to maybe wipe Israel off the map. We're not sure. We're told that that's why they want nukes, to wipe Israel off the map. But I'm not convinced that they really want to wipe Israel off the map. I'm more convinced that they're just trying to protect themselves. And make sure that nobody attacks them because they know if they have nukes, nobody's going to attack them. And we're seeing these atrocities unfold in Ukraine. The horrible human cost of this invasion of Ukraine, and then we're left on the sidelines like we have this powerful military alliance that's right there. And at least one report that I saw, I think it was Zelensky, was claiming. I don't know how true this is. So I take it with a grain of salt when I read it. I take it with a grain of salt hearing it. That he was told that NATO wasn't going to let him in. They were going to leave the door open and leave them in this precarious position of wanting to join NATO and being open to invasion to stop that from happening, but never actually joining NATO because that would be, dangerous, I guess. But if they were a part of NATO, they never would have been attacked. Russia would not have attacked Ukraine if Ukraine was already a part of NATO. Because the whole Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all. That's why Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia are safe. That's why they want American troops over there. That's why Poland is safe. That's why all these countries are safe, because they're part of NATO already. But that's this weird new reality that we have nukes, so we can do whatever we want to do. What are you gonna do? We have nukes. You gonna fight back? You can't fight back. We've got nukes. What are you going to do? But there's got to come. There's got to be a way. There's got to come a point where you look around and you go, you know what, this is just unacceptable. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe they. What I was saying the first time I did a Ukraine talk was maybe one country says, okay, we're doing this unilaterally, not with NATO, not with the United Nations. We're just going in unilaterally as neighbors and friends to quell the humanitarian situation. And then Poland sends in a bunch of planes to establish a no-fly zone. Because Poland is safe. They can't counterattack Poland. Nobody's going to attack Poland. And if they do attack Poland as a counterattack, when Poland goes in and says, look, we're just establishing, we're sitting in peacekeeping forces, we're establishing a no-fly zone, we're putting a cap on this thing. Nothing more is going to happen more than 50 feet off the ground. Purely defensive. If you target us, we'll shoot back. That sort of thing. A purely defensive nuclear weapon. Purely defensive A-10 Warthog. Purely defensive weapon system. Well, then that ends it because Russia can't shoot down a Polish plane. Russia can't attack Poland because then NATO comes in and drops a big fucking Cleveland steamer on their chest. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know how that shakes out. I don't know. That could be a much wider and much more dangerous situation than we can postulate about. Ting Ting was a medical CB when your time in Iraq. That's cool. There was. It wasn't just the yellow cake lie. There was the anthrax, the mobile. There was they were trying to make nukes. They were. It was the aluminum tubes for the centrifuges, the mobile chemical weapons, and to be completely fair, uh, the justification for invasion of Iraq wasn't completely based on a lot. There was a lot of lies to build a justification, but the underlying the report, that Davidson report or whatever it was called, literally said that the chemical weapons program had been mothballed but not abandoned. And their finding was that when sanctions were lifted, they would restart the program. So it wasn't, and the United Nations Security Council resolution was for them to end their nuclear and chemical weapons program. And Iraq did not end their chemical weapon and nuclear program. They didn't have a nuclear weapon program to end, but they also did not end their chemical weapons program. They just mothballed it and set it aside so that when sanctions were lifted, they could restart it. And that was the findings of that Davis report, whatever it was. And you can fact check me on that. I may not be 100% correct about that, but that's my understanding. That's my memory of it. And they just dropped the report and didn't actually give a summary and explanation of it. You actually have to read the report. And when you get down towards the end where it has the findings and beliefs and findings, that's where they start to say that when sanctions are lifted, it is a high likelihood, or something to that effect, that the systems can be restarted, meaning that the sanctions would always have to be in effect in Iraq, and that was just, it was bad for Iraq, and it was bad for us, and it was just a big fucking mess. But that doesn't necessarily, by itself, that doesn't justify going in and kicking over the government and replacing it. There's certainly better ways to negotiate a peaceful resolution to that whole situation. There's certainly better ways. But hindsight being 2020, We can always find better ways 25 years later, can't we? Yes, yes, we can. And it's hard to judge history with uh, prescription glasses from the future. So, um, scrolling. I think it's probably a good time to just go and wrap. Uh, we, we know. Um, I believe in living in a country so free that we can shoot rifles with one hand and eat a 3/4 pound bacon cheeseburger from Wendy's. Now, to be completely fair, though, proper gun safety is having two hands on your rifle. You steady that rifle, you put it up against your shoulder, you're steadying the rifle. Proper gun safety is properly holding. Now you can always shoot it, you know, chuck that butt right there on your shoulder. You can always shoot it right there, bam, bam, if you want to. But proper gun safety, you're using both hands to steady your rifle. You you can have we do have the freedom to eat a cheeseburger with one hand and shoot a gun with the other. But I would just simply recommend shooting a pistol, uh, maybe a sawed-off shotgun, something like that. Something you can easily fire off with one hand. Maybe not a full rifle. Those suckers pack a punch, and you know that. Um, what else we got to talk about? Uh, I think it's like I was saying. It's probably a good time to wrap. Um, we've been here. Where are we at? It's coming close to 2 hours now. Um, John Jacob's family fought in the Revolutionary War and many wars since. That's a long damn history of men and women fighting in wars. Um, I look forward to the day when we can say my family fought in the last war that the United States participated in. That was my great grandfather fought in the last war that the United States participated because we haven't had any wars since then. And I guess technically we can say that because we haven't had any wars since my grandfathers fought in World War II. Uh, so I can technically say that my grandfathers did fight in the last war that the United States participated in. But I would also like to further that by saying the last war that was actually waged. It's an ideal. It's not, peace in our time. Uh, that's the line that keeps getting thrown back in Neville Chamberlain's face, and he's been dead for a few decades now. Uh, I would like to see a day. It would be. It's a dream. It's a dream of mine to know that we could one day live in a world that doesn't have full scale war. Wars suck. They're not glorious. Heroes are heroes are made when men die. It's just, and that's a kind of a shorthand, but that's not entirely true. But you know what I mean. It's not um, it's not often that heroic actions happen when there's not a tragedy. That's why heroic actions happen because there's a tragedy. A tragedy's involved. Somebody fell on the railroad tracks and the hero saved them. Uh, there's a burning building and the hero saves everybody. There's several people were injured with an IED and the hero gets them all onto the helicopter. Uh, Plane crashes in the Potomac and the hero passes the rope and passes the rope and passes the rope until he slips under the ice. Um, I don't want to live in a world without heroes, but I would certainly like to have our heroes be created in a way that didn't involve uh, elective destruction of the countries where the heroes come from. Um, I'm proud of the fact that I have uh, ancestors who landed on the beaches of Normandy. I would be more proud of the fact that the my kids, my children's grandchildren will be talking about civil service as a thing that's done to build and not destroy. Because we spend an awful lot of money on destruction. We spend an awful lot of money to blow things up, and then an awful lot of money to rebuild things. And sometimes we build an awful lot of money again to blow those things back down. Um, I think if we focused as much energy and effort on building things as we do on blowing things up, the world we live in, the world we give to our kids and their kids and their kids would be a remarkably different world than the world we live in today. And I look forward to the day that, and maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe one day when I'm looking down from Zion, uh, and looking down on the world that my children's children are working on creating, I'll be able to look down and say, we planted the seeds of a world where they can spend their money and their effort and their time building. We planted orchards of trees that we won't eat the fruit of, but they will. We planted trees that we won't live in the shade of, but they will. We planted trees that we didn't benefit from the fruit from, but they benefited from the fruit and took the seeds and planted more fruit, or planted more trees and made more fruit, and grew an even better world, not just for themselves, but for generations to come after. I look forward to that world. I don't know if we will ever live in a world that's free of struggle and strife and warfare, but I do think that we can live in a world that if we spend as much effort making peace as we do making war, we can live in a world that has remarkably little war in it. Um, and I think that is, it may be, a dream that's beyond our reach, but it's certainly something that we can strive for. Um, it's telling that we can always come up with money to drop bombs on airfields. But if you're ever told to stop and think about how many scholarships are being dropped on those airfields that are in the form of bombs, and that maybe we really do have the money to pay for college for every single boy and girl, that we really do have the money to pay for basic health care for every single man, woman, and child in this country, that we really do have the money to do the things that we as a people want to do that makes us all healthier and wealthier and wiser and better citizens, if we didn't put it into things that explode rather than things that build. Then, if you're stopped and made to think about that for just 1 second, it should make you angry. It should make you frustrated a little bit that we live in a world that does that would rather drop scholarships on some foreign soil than here in the United States. That we would rather take the money for those scholarships and put it into a bomb casing and drop it on an airfield and blow up an airfield than drop it onto a high school, actual scholarships onto high schools here in the United States and build airfields. You want to talk about protecting our borders. That's how you protect our borders, by making sure that people have health care and making sure that people have educations and making sure that people have housing and making sure that people have decent roads and that they have childcare and that they have the basic things that we need. If we really are a people who's pro-life, then we have the basic things that people need to support life rather than cruise missiles that can blow up airfields 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles away. Uh, if we spent more time building things, we wouldn't have to worry as much about petty dictators 10,000 miles away. If we spent more time creating instead of destroying, then we'd have a border worth protecting. Um, and that's not to say we don't have a border worth protecting, because we do. But if we also lived up to our ideals and we lived the things that we said we believed, then the way we protect the border would be drastically different than arresting people asking for asylum and putting them into a court hearing. It would be drastically different. The way we did things would be drastically different. And that's also something that is very important to remember. That if we acted on the things that we said we acted that we believed, if we did the things we said we did, instead of just say the things that we say we do. Hell, if we did the things that we say we do, we wouldn't have to say we do the things we do. You don't have to tell someone you love them if you love them. You don't have to tell the troops you support them if you support them. You don't have to tell the police you back the blue if you back the blue. You don't have to tell people your restaurant doesn't discriminate if your restaurant doesn't discriminate. You don't have to say those things if you actually do those things. And I hope for a day, I hope that before I close my eyes for the last time, I get to see a world that's moving in that direction more rapidly than what we're doing now. Rather than saying we, believe in a clean environment, actually believing in a clean environment and doing the things that creates a clean environment. Uh, that's that's what I look forward to. And that's, again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. That's one of the reasons why I support Ukraine, and just it breaks my heart that Russia's invading and leveling cities and doing what they're doing, because our ideals matter to us, or they should. Our ideals matter to me, at least. I would hope that our ideals matter to us. That we do believe in a people who have a right of sovereignty and a right to self-determine and a right to choose the path of their country, assuming, assuming, of course, that their government is legitimate and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the caveats that go with that. Um, we as a people believe these things, and Russia is literally trying to take that away from an entire people and an entire country, and has decided for them, this is what we are going to let you do. And as a community, as a world community, and as the titular leaders of that world community, we should give a shit. We should stand up and say, that's not right. And we should do absolutely everything in our power to A, prevent it, and B, put an end to it, and then C, roll it back to where it was before, and then finally D, make sure that it never, ever happens again. And I don't know how to do all that. I know how to do the first couple. Not easy. It takes a whole lot of effort and a whole lot of time. and a whole lot of money and a whole lot of focus. But we need to we that it's important to us. And I say that knowing full well that my children are nearing draft age, that my children may be wrapped up in this. If it goes for another 3 years, if this turns into a world fucking war and it drags on for another 3 years, my kids are going to be draft age. I would really hope that it doesn't come to that. I really, really hope it doesn't come to that. I would much rather, uh, compulsory compulsory service. I'd be much more uh, amenable to compulsory service if that service included building rather than destroying. Because I could definitely put my kids to work building. I have a whole lot for them to build. I've been working at building this thing for uh, almost 10 years now, and I could put them to work building that. Absolutely. And they can build it. So, Safety Doc has joined the party. Uh, what is this? Host of the show has yet to accept. Are you kidding me? Did you send me a LinkedIn request? I'm gonna. Do I even have that on my phone? Let me look and see if I have LinkedIn on my phone. LinkedIn. I do not have LinkedIn on my phone. Safety Doc. You see that? LinkedIn. No results. LinkedIn. No results. Come on, man. Who uses LinkedIn? People only use LinkedIn 2 times in their entire life. Well, there's only 2 times when people are using LinkedIn: when they're looking for a job, uh, when they have a job and they're looking for a job, or they just got fired and they're looking for a job. When you have a job and you're not looking, nobody uses LinkedIn. That is hilarious. Oh my god. Is there an open mic night where you're at, man? Because seriously. What else we got over here? Safety Doc is in the house. Granada. Ah, God. Granada. Yeah, that was a whole nother thing. That was, if I recall, Grenada was an operation to basically evacuate a bunch of U.S. students from the university. We dropped Marines in Grenada, evacuated our students, and then screwed off, got out of there. I thought Grenada, the whole rebellion, they like overthrew the governor, kept the queen. They kept the queen as the titular head of state, overthrew the governor, and then established a communist country, a communist regime with the queen as the head of state still. If I recall properly, I may be wrong about that. Um, and then the whole operation for the U.S. Marines was to go in, get the kids, the students. They weren't all kids. Get the students out of the university and get out. That was it. That was they. I don't think the Marines were sent to overthrow the government, the rebel government there. I don't remember. I was 8, I think, when Grenada was going down. Um, Panama. I was in middle school, I think, when Panama went down, and that was to capture literally to capture a head of state and bring him back to the United States so that he could stand trial. I mean, if you there's no better description of a police action than capturing a head of state to bring him back to the United States to stand trial. That is also the military offensive that we learned about the stealth bombers and what the UFOs everybody was seeing in Nevada were actually all about. But there you go. Triangle of Death sounds just dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. But I know that is actually a place in Iraq, not. not just a dirty, dirty, dirty hooch, a dirty cooter. Where are we at? Ting Ting's link. Thank you, John Jacobs, for being a good mod. I appreciate that. I agree. Warmongers absolutely need to send their children to war. 100%. I could 100% get on board with that. If you are, uh, if you're going to send my kid to war, I absolutely want my kid to be in the same division as your kid. If you're going to send my kids to war, um, and I don't mean being in that division where the optional show up division that George W. was in, where he gets to learn how to fly a plane, but he doesn't really have to show up for operations. Allegedly, there's no proof to that. Don't at me. Just, I'm kidding. It's a reference to the Walter Cronkite. Was it Walter Cronkite story? Can't remember. I can't remember who it was. Donaldson, Sam Donaldson, Walter Cronkite. It was one of those two. I think it was Walter Cronkite that shit the bed on that story. Anyway, um, scrolling chat, scrolling. Let's go to that. Will that give me? Will that give me my chat window? Yeah, y'all can see chat there. We'll do that. What is this one? What is this window here? What is that? You can't see that, but I can. What is that? Giveaway? Oh, I think that's I don't know what this is. Something hidden. Is it this one? No? I don't know. I'm seeing a little a block here on my screen, but I don't know what it is attached to. So I'm not going to worry about that. Where's my chat window? Okay, so here we go. And there we go. Yeah, we can scroll through chat together, and we'll just need to ramp up production. 10 votes and 30 minutes out. Catch all the. Y'all can even see which what I'm highlighting with my cursor here. See? Uh, Tuna. Never heard of them before. What are you hearing for? Okay, I'm just reading chat now. We got to the bottom of chat, guys. It's midnight. It's 12:01 p.m. Um, This has been a happy hour. It's been a 2 hour happy hour. I am just to the end of my drink. So let's get on with, let's get back here. Come back here. Let's wrap the show. Shall we, guys, gals? Any objection? I don't have any objections. So moved and thusly sustained. We'll be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, what do I want to talk about tomorrow night? I had a post. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking about. Tomorrow night I'll be talking about Tales from the Road. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about Tales from the Road tomorrow night. Have my comment section on. Trivia night is Thursday night. Tomorrow night will be campfire stories. So, as I said last week, I was on vacation. State park vacations are some of the cheapest, greatest vacations you can go on. I went down to Inks Lake State Park. I'll talk about that tomorrow night. I have 5 days of stories because we spent 5 days in a tent, had a burn ban on the last night that we spent in the park. I had a moon witch show up. There's a great story behind the moon witch. There's a story about the reality show that was being recorded allegedly and across the parking across the street. There was the college orgy party that was over by the bathrooms. And the chick that kept running, the running chick that we saw every morning. Great stories I've got tomorrow night, and also an expose, a segment on a little hidden gem of a distillery that we found over in Burnett or near Burnett. I'll tell you about those guys tomorrow night, and I will taste their bourbon. I bought a bottle of their bourbon. I'll show it off tomorrow night. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great show tomorrow night. Then Tuesday night, I'm going to take the night off because I'll be traveling to Austin and back. And then, is that Tuesday night or is that Wednesday night? Yeah, that'll be Tuesday night, I think. Let me look at my calendar here. No, Wednesday. Okay, so maybe I'll have the show on Tuesday. Austin is Wednesday night. So tonight's Sunday. Monday campfire stories. Tuesday, we'll do our spring equinox show. And the spring equinox show is going to be another round earth discussion because the spring equinox tells us it's another one of those daily observational facts that tells us that the world is round. And it's a thing that we intuitively know just by looking around and seeing the stuff around us, but just casually observing the world around us and the way it works, we know the geometry of our universe. And one of the most fascinating, it's one of the things that I find fascinating about the world and the universe we live in is that we can simply observe things around us and know how it works. You don't have to go, 10,000 miles out and see it. You can actually infer from the stuff that we see directly. Like the way the shadows, the way the sunlight lights up the moon, we know where the sun's located. And from that, just those two pieces of information, we know how far away the sun is. So, yesterday was the equinox, so we know we that's one of those observational things that we know how the shape of the world. We know the shape of the Earth. We know the shape of the moon, and we know that the Earth orbits around the sun. How do we know these things? Well, we'll talk about that on Wednesday night, and then Thursday night we have trivia. Um, we'll pick one of these decks of cards. We'll do trivia. We'll do the same program where we have 15 questions, 10 or 15 questions. I may break it up into two bits where we have first round, a second round. Um, but winner gets 20 boozy bucks. Second place gets 10. Third place gets 5. And then you can use those boozy bucks to apply towards a bottle of whiskey, hat, T-shirt, whatever you want to do. And then we go from there, guys. Also tomorrow I'll do a update on our quest for 100,000 views. We'll be talking about shorts and how to integrate shorts into your program, or your channel strategy, shorts and how to integrate them into your channel strategy and how they can be useful, a useful tool for your strategy, and how they work and how they don't work as far as a strategy for your channel. And then scattered in there, we'll have a couple of day in the lives because I need to bottle up some whiskey tomorrow, Tuesday. Tomorrow, Tuesday, and Thursday, the order needs to be finished. And Wednesday, I'm out of town, so I'll have a day in the life tomorrow and maybe a day in the life on Tuesday as well. And that's that, guys. Be awesome to each other. Here's my drink. Be awesome to each other. Love with your whole heart. And, dream big because, Jesus Christ, if you're not dreaming big, somebody else is. And it's way better to live in your dreams than their dreams. Because if their dreams are bigger than your dreams, they'll spill over into your life. And your dream should be big enough to spill over into their life. That's how we make the world a better place. But make those people live in your dreams. What is that? No that can contain the tuna. God, you guys always are perpetually cracking me up. Love you all. Appreciate you joining me. I really do appreciate the support. Tell your friends, share the shows, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like the video, comment, all that stuff. Thank you again for your support. Be awesome to each other and love with your whole fucking chest. Cheers and good night.